Everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, great. So, I like to start off with some chanting or some sound, um, because I like it and I think it's fun. And it kind of brings this together, brings the Sangha together, sharing in sound. And might feel a little awkward at first, but you just do it anyway, and then it becomes really enjoyable. So after you get over that hump, it's really, really nice. So we did this chant last week that I really love. It's one of my favorites, and it's an homage to the Buddha. Also, I forgot to mention Zoomers. Hello. And I know there was some sound issues last week. So if that happens again, just write a note. And apparently, it happened when I turned my head. So if it happens again, I will not turn my head, and I'll just keep it straight. Just let us know. So anyway, back to what I was saying. The chant is an homage to the Buddha, and it's the words are Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Mune Soha. Um, Tayata is refers to this word Tathagata, which is how the Buddha referred to himself. Uh, and it means both coming and going at the same time. So, which references sort of this idea that the Buddha wasn't attached to anything at all. Uh, Tayata Om. Om is like the universal seed syllable. It's the sound, the sacred sound that it said it's the sound that the universe makes. Um, some people say, I've heard it described as the white light of sound. It's the sound that contains all other sounds. Um, Muni is sage, sage. So, you've ever heard Shakyamuni from Siddhartha Gautama? Uh, Shakyamuni means the sage of the Shakyas, and the Shakyas were the clan that the Buddha was born into. And then Maha Mune is the great silent. So it's homage to the great silent sage. That's a really beautiful. And Soha is kind of like a amen, like a yes, I believe this. So I'll just start chanting, and then you'll just join in, and you'll know when to stop because I'll ring the bell for the last round. So just pausing here and just allowing the energy to drop down from the head into the body, resting towards the earth. Hmm. And again, I'll just start chanting. When you feel comfortable, you can join in. We'll do it several times, so plenty of opportunity to just listen. Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamune Soha Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamune Soha Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamune Soha Tayata Om Muni Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamune Soham 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 Dayata Om Muni Muni Mahamune Soha. Noticing as they come into silence, relative silence. Don't know what that noise is. What remains? And how the chant still kind of stays in the body. And as we continue here, just allowing the attention to kind of move towards the back of the body. So feel what it's like behind the eyes, the space behind the eyes. We're so used to kind of living in the front of the body, which makes sense. Our senses are sort of there. Moving towards the back. And then allowing the attention to just descend down to the center of the body. There's some kind of space alien noise happening, and it's very distracting. So I don't know if we could fix that. Okay. Sorry, Zoomers, we had a sound malfunction in the room, so we shall start again. So taking a few deep breaths. Feeling this body, this ground, this space. Once again, allowing the attention to move behind the eyes toward the back of the body. And then allowing the energy to, the attention to just kind of descend slowly down. Passing through the heart, the belly, down the legs into the earth. And not just feeling rooted in the earth, but feeling a belonging with it. Well, the first thing he did was he touched the earth, signifying that we are not separate from it. This awakening, this human life is not separate from the life of the earth. This process, this path, this practice is natural one. Like all processes in nature, they can't be forced. They just be let go into. When we sit down to meditate, we start to see what's in the way of allowing this natural process to unfold. The stories and the conditioning and the opinions and the judgments and all the stuff. And just for this moment, can we just let those things go? Relax. These patterns, these stories often kind of manifest in the body. And so maybe you feel a tightening or a gripping or a subtle holding. And just for this moment, can it be let go of, relaxed? feel any contraction, any tightening, the energy going back up into the head. Just, again, just take a nice long breath. Unburden yourself. And every time we do that, our capacity grows a little bit more. Not getting rid of, just making room for. There's nothing that doesn't belong here. That's for this last bit of our meditation, just bringing some attention to your heart. Just filling this body with kindness, this system, this psychology, this conditioning. It's not our choice to have these thoughts or to have these things arise. If it was, things would be a lot different. It's the only response that makes any sense at all is love, is kindness, is metta. So we can take that burden off of ourselves. actions and stories and all of these things come out of this deep desire to be safe, to be happy, long. You can stay with this, or if you'd like to, you can radiate out kindness in all directions. Maybe to those sitting next to you or behind you or in front of you, or next to you on the Zoom screen, or just generally radiating out, filling this space with kindness, care, knowing that we're all in the same boat with this mind. Zoomers, I'm ringing the bell. Thank you all so much for your practice. So we'll take a little break here, 5 minutes, and yeah, let's keep this space silent. And if you'd like to commune in sangha, you can go out there to the tea room or the lobby or the library. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 5 minutes. Did I say that? Yeah. Zoomers, was the sound okay? Was I cutting in and out or anything? It's good? Okay, great. So this is what the candles look like that we're missing. So if you have it, we will find you. I have a very special set of skills that will allow me to find you. Okay. Okay. All right. So seasons, holidays, everybody. Welcome. I try to think of the most generic way to say happy holidays, and I came up with seasons, holidays. Seasons, holidays, everyone. So last week we explored um, how uh, conditions stir the heart, and I talked about the eight worldly winds, and they are gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, status and disrepute. And I like how the Buddha called these worldly winds because they're just things that move through our lives. Um, doesn't mean you're a bad person if any of these happen to you. Doesn't mean you're like a super great person if they happen to you. It's just the way things are. It's kind of like what it's like to be human. These eight categories, not just these eight categories. Many things kind of move through and move away and they come back. Just when you think you're done with them, they come back again and just move. It's just the way things are. That's what life does. And these times of the year, these cultural points of the year can amplify them a lot. You probably see that out, and you could especially see them when I lived in a big city. Like stress levels were just like way up, and there was kind of this expectation to be a particular way, uh, whether it's around your coworkers or your family or whatever it is. And so these things get heightened. And I talked about last week how just naming them helps loosen our reactivity and brings just kind of a sense of space and even a sense of tenderness for yourself. It's kind of like at the end of that meditation when I talked about the only logical response to a lot of these things is just kindness and love because we don't control most of the things that happen to us, the thoughts that we have, the opinions that we have. This conditioning is very, very real. And if we could just stop it, if we were in control of it, then we would, right? Uh, if these damaging thoughts that were happening in my mind, uh, if I didn't want them to be there, I could just remove them if they were mine. But they're not mine. They're just things. They're just winds that move through and move away. And so last week we talked about what moves, and this week I'd like to talk about what does not move, what doesn't move, what stays. And I like to call this, and I'm sure other people call it this, an unshakable heart. So our responsiveness, this heart that we can cultivate through our practice, that's steady, that's open, that's caring, that even as the winds continue to blow, we see them for what they are. There's a space within which all of these winds move. And can we familiarize ourselves more with that space, that natural quality? And I love that. This symbol of the Buddha here is the Buddha touching the earth. And that's, again, when he awoke, he touched the earth. And that his whole time under the Bodhi tree, Mara was sending all of these things to the Buddha. And the Buddha had this unshakable heart. And this final confirmation was touching the earth. This I will not move. This heart will not move, will not react to this, to what's happening. And again, these wins are not personal. We tend to make them personal. Again, gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, status and disrepute. We kind of move towards gain and move towards praise and move towards pleasure and move towards status, and then we run away from loss and blame and pain and disrepute. And we can strategize our entire lives around doing this. And in ways we don't even notice, in very, very subtle ways. So our whole lives become this project to move towards those things that bring us pleasure and away from those things that bring us displeasure. And that is what dukkha is. It's this it's this constant strategizing. It's this constant attempt to curate our lives in a particular way, and that is suffering in and of itself. But again, these things, this is just what it's like to be human. This is what humanity is. And so part of being is stepping into our humanity and being humane with ourselves is just knowing that these things happen. And no one's exempt from it, even though it looks like they might be. No one's exempt, not even the Buddha. The Buddha wasn't exempt. Uh, all through the suttas, different things happen to him. One of my favorite things about the Buddha, and this is a weird thing to be, that's my favorite thing, but I love that he complained about his back. I just love that. It makes him this human, you know. He'd be traveling and his back would hurt. Say, I can't do the talk tonight. Nanda, can you do the teaching tonight? And I really love that because it's the Buddha was a human. The Buddha experienced pain. When Ananda died, the Buddha experienced grief. He talks about that. So that gives me confidence. The Buddha's not this God or this person that's any different than me. The Buddha was constantly reminding us that what he achieved, all of us can achieve in this life. Yeah. So what we can take away from the learning about these worldly winds is that our suffering doesn't come from the winds themselves. If they did, then there would be an end of suffering. Like the Four Noble Truths would just be meaningless. But the Buddha talked about there was an end. The third noble truth is that there is an end to suffering. And how does the suffering end? It doesn't stop. The suffering doesn't end when the winds stop. That's not the end. That's not the end of suffering. The end of suffering happens when we stop taking them personally. You know, the Buddha never said we won't experience pain, but the Buddha did say that we can get to a place where we're not suffering anymore, or we're not carrying around these things, where things just aren't personal anymore. And so when these things happen to us, it's easy to go into self-blame. But that's just more suffering. And this belief that it defines us, it creates resistance and clinging, which is suffering. And so I encouraged last week, and the Buddha encourages us to we practice recognizing these winds with honesty and courage and compassion and kindness. And so the question is there something within me that doesn't get swept away? Otherwise, we're just kind of being blown around our entire lives. That's how most people are. Is there a place of natural steadiness, of genuine steadiness? And this leads to this quality that we call equanimity. Equanimity. And equanimity is one of the most important and misunderstood qualities in Buddhist practice. And when you read the suttas, there's all these lists. I don't know if the Buddha himself was a list maker. I'm not sure. Uh, I, in the suttas, things are written down as lists, but that might have been a way to memorize things because all the suttas were memorized and passed around orally. So that could be something. But equanimity makes it into so many lists. It's in a lot of them. Um, so it seems to be a very central quality. It's the fourth Brahmavihara. It's a awakening factor. It's all kinds of stuff. But something that it's not is that it's not detachment. It's not numbness. It's not indifference. It's not shutting down or not experiencing emotion. Equanimity is warm. It's um, intimate. It's grounded. It's spacious. It's balanced. It's the capacity to hold joy without clinging to it. It's the capacity to hold sorrow without collapsing underneath it. It's the capacity to hold metta and compassion without it getting saccharine and syrupy. It's the heart's ability to feel things closely without being overwhelmed by them. And so it's very, very important, a very, very important quality. And we could say it's central to what we're developing and cultivating in our practice. Ajahn Chah expressed this really beautifully, and he has this. There's a story about him, and he has this cup. He really loves this cup, and you've probably heard the story before. Um, and he loves this cup, and he holds this cup up, and he says, "I love this cup. It's my favorite cup." Um, but he said, one day I might knock it over with my elbow, or an earthquake might come and knock it off the shelf, and it'll break. All these different things can come. And so he said, what brings him the greatest joy is to see the glass or see the cup is already broken. Every time he holds on to it, it's already broken. Because it's already broken, because I see it as already broken, I can use it with great tenderness. Every time I pick this up, it's sacred. Every drink I take out of this cup is sacred. So the equanimity doesn't make life less precious, it makes it more precious. Because all of us are like that cup. We'll all, I don't know if you know this, but you should. We're all going to die. We might get sick. Hopefully, we'll grow old if we're lucky. And so each moment we have with somebody or something or a place, well, at some time, we won't have a relationship with it anymore the same way that we did. So each moment that we have with something is precious. So how much intimacy does that create with something or something or somebody when we see them as already broken, already already gone? Everything is changing. Everything is uncertain. Everything is alive. Everything is unpredictable. All things. It's the characteristic of all things. this material world. And this is how the sacred enters into our lives. And when we see this very clearly, the heart begins to soften and we care more wisely. We don't care less, we care more wisely. As I said, the Buddha talked about this one all the time. He talked about this quality of steadiness often. And when I think of the Buddha, equanimity is kind of what comes to mind, the main quality. In one of the suttas, Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length discourses, he described the mind that does not cling. So it's a mind that remains free, whether pleasure or pain is present. In Guttara Nikaya, which is the long discourses, he lists the signs of a noble disciple, neither elated by gain nor dejected by loss, neither elevated by praise nor cast down by blame. So it doesn't mean it's a steadiness, but it doesn't mean we're not experiencing these things. These things are experienced, they're just not clung to, we're not taken by them. So we probably notice that within yourselves, like when anger comes, you're not just experiencing anger, you kind of become anger. It overtakes you. Or exuberance, exuberance. We're not just experiencing it, we become it. Joy or whatever it is, or grief. We're not just experiencing grief, we become the grief. So equanimity keeps us in touch with the reality of things, this steadiness. These, these winds, these things come and they go, and we experience them more intimately because they're not about us. They're not holding up an identity. And when it's not an identity, then we experience them much more intimately because we're not defined by them. In the Muni Sutta, remember that word Muni from the beginning? Muni, sage. Uh, as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not shaken by praise or blame. And again, this doesn't mean we don't feel things. Of course we feel things. It means we're rooted in something much deeper than circumstance, than conditions, than the things that happen to us. Yeah, just like these mountains that surround us. I love it at this time of the year, like with the clouds and there's snow on top, and you know these things are moving around the mountains. But every time you get a clear look, the mountain's still there, still looks the same. There's all these things happening around it. You know, the snow might melt off of it, or whatever happens, but the mountain remains. The weather just kind of happens around it. The mountain's experiencing these things, but it's not becoming those things. So all kinds of stuff is happening. People are walking on it, animals are living on it. It's not defined by the weather. The mountain is the mountain. And that's really what the heart of equanimity is all about. And so we can sometimes see this quality, equanimity, as like this cool detachment, like a distant state. But in truth, equanimity, I feel, is a form of love. It's one of the Brahma Viharas. It's a form of love. It's It's metta. I like to think of all of the Brahma Viharas as metta. And so when metta just means loving kindness or loving friendliness or just love. And so when metta, when love meets the vicissitudes of life, the worldly winds, you know, it becomes equanimity. It becomes the steadiness through it all. It's the kindness that shows up when we're experiencing these big ups and downs. It's the steadiness. It's the love. It's a through line of love through all of those things. Yeah, this understanding that these things happen. It's love that has capacity, that has room. Love with boundaries that can say no. Love that doesn't collapse under pressure. Love that doesn't demand that the world or another person be different, have the perfect conditions before it can stay open. And equanimity kind of balances out the other Brahma Viharas. It protects compassion from burning out. It keeps joy from becoming this out of control exuberance. As I said before, it keeps metta from becoming sappy. And it also, this is really important, it allows us to care for others without taking responsibility for their actions. I think is really important quality. It helps us to remain present in conflict without being swallowed up by it. This ancient teacher I really love named Shanti Deva, Bodhisattva's way of life, or the um, he has this prayer. May I be a guide for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a bridge, a lamp. This is the Dalai Lama's favorite. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a bridge, a lamp. May I be the medicine itself. You can't be a lamp. You can't be a steady presence without equanimity. Otherwise, the lamp just flickers and when the wind comes and goes out. You need that. You need that steadiness. Equanimity is that love that shows up when things are difficult. Doesn't mean the difficulty goes away, but there's a there's a bolstering that happens. That's kind of what I've seen from this practice over the years. The thing that more and more noticeable for me is that my falls just aren't as far anymore. It's not as far. Things happen. When my uh, mother passed away, I really noticed it because I was raised by my mother, single mother, um, and absentee father. I saw my father maybe 3 or 4 times my whole life. Um, and when she passed away, it was like my whole world, just my whole upbringing was gone. Um, that one person who was always there, who was that steadiness. And it was, uh, there was a lot of grief. There was a lot of loss. There was a lot of things. Trying to find words to articulate right now. What I did notice after a while looking back is it never became really about me. It didn't become this overwhelming grief that uh, really caught me, where other losses in my life before it really did become about that. It really did make it about, you know, my experience. And um, something met me. And I can't really explain it. Something met me, and maybe it was just like this need to help my siblings or the rest of my family in some way. But I can only I was only able to show up for them because of the Dharma and this quality of equanimity. And that's when it was really noticeable to me about how much the Dharma had changed my life. It was in that moment or in those months, you know, from after that. And so for me, it's shown up so much. These various things that have happened in my life. This has been the most noticeable thing is that the highs, you know, are enjoyable, but they're not out of control. I'm no longer requiring them anymore. And then the lows they're just not as low, not overtaken by them. I can still function in the world. And again, this is something that can't really be forced. It's not like, all right, I need equanimity in this situation. It doesn't really happen like that. For me, it's exactly what I was saying in the meditation. It's like this practice happens naturally. It just begins to show up. We practice and and this is how the Buddha talked about it, is that things just naturally arise just from kind of getting out of the way, like moving, like in the meditation, like seeing what's keeping me from being in the present moment right now. What's keeping me, what's keeping the natural qualities to come forth. And as I get out of the way, these qualities of the heart come forward: equanimity, compassion. I was talking to this teacher last week, and he was telling me he was at a retreat center, and he was in this really deep samadhi place, and he found himself just kind of sitting in the coat room, like in this samadhi state, and like people were like moving past him and like going around him and getting their coats from around him, and he just wasn't phased. He was just immovable, just right there, experiencing it all, but just like no need to like do anything. But then he said, but there was this realization he had. If he would have heard a baby cry in that moment, he would have responded immediately. And it really struck me. Wasn't trying to make the point I'm going to make next, but how it made me feel was that's the natural responsiveness of the heart. Like when we get out of the way and allow the natural qualities to come forth, this is what the Buddha talked about, and this later term that came, bodhicitta. That's what bodhicitta is. The awakened heart mind is this natural responsiveness of the mind. When I get past my personality and my stories, that the heart is naturally responsive. It will respond in a compassionate way because our true nature is compassion. When that nature is allowed to come forth, it's responsive. And I just found that really, really moving. It's the same way with equanimity. All the Brahma Viharas really. It's like the heart will respond naturally when we get out of the way and allow it to come forth. Again, this is a natural process, a natural process. Yeah, I have some practical stuff here. I'm going to skip over most of it, but I think I've been pretty practical in this talk. But I think one way, and I'm not really great at this, but um, one way to nurture equanimity, probably the best way, one of the ways, is an action you can do, which is just pausing. Originally, I wrote just pausing before reacting, but pausing before, during, or after reacting. That's how I like to think of it. It's kind of when the Buddha was giving advice to his son, Rahula, this is what he talked about. He talked about in the middle of, if you're going to act unskillfully, if you know before you're going to act unskillfully, don't act unskillfully. If you're in the middle of acting unskillfully, stop acting unskillfully. But the most powerful thing you can do is after you've acted unskillfully is to reflect on why you acted unskillfully and how that came about. And that's really the most powerful thing you can do. And so always reflecting on our reactivity, I think is really important. Like, what are my triggers or what is my conditioning? When do I go into that kind of automatic mode? You know, when I know, I always think of road rage. Um, like somebody cuts you off on the road, you just kind of become a totally different person. Like this program turns on, and you just become this like tyrant on the road. You know, that's I have a brother who's very much like that. But it's like those things when what really sets me off, and this program kicks in, and I just start going. You know, so that's important. And then once we start to see that, then we can start to undo it. That's when equanimity begins to come through next time that trigger happens. And so we create the conditions over time through our practice for these things to arise in the moment. Yeah. Returning to the body is always really important. Reactivity always happens up here. The head kind of gets us in trouble. You know, this thinking and story making and storytelling and all these winds blowing through the mind. If we kind of just bring it into the body, so the winds can kind of begin to settle, or it becomes more tangible because we feel it in the body. So really becoming familiar and learning how the body responds to the mind. Remembering impermanence, very important. Everything passes, even the most challenging moments, even the best moments have expiration dates. Equanimity is the wisdom of allowing everything its own lifespan. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here. So every day, you probably, this is probably a no-brainer, uh, offers us countless opportunities to practice equanimity. Yeah, difficult family conversations, moments of loneliness, sudden swell of joy, being praised, being judged, feeling included, feeling invisible, all of these things. Yeah. Can we be equanimous through those things? And equanimity, it doesn't again, it doesn't change. We can expect these winds not to blow, but it does change how we relate to them. It's a very common thing we talk about in Buddhism. I say it all the time. It's really not about curating or changing life itself. It's just changing how we relate to the things that happen to us, the things that are moving through our lives. Okay, I'll just pause. Again, the Buddha and the Muni Sutta, as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not shaken by praise or blame. And so maybe the deeper truth here is to cultivate an unshakable heart is to not is not to shut life out, but to meet life exactly as it is, with courage, curiosity, patience. The winds will blow, they always have, they always will. And there can be a settledness or relaxing into that knowing. And even though they blow, there's something in us that can learn to stay, that can learn to steady, that can learn to open and be kind. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your attention. And yeah, we have a little time, so if anyone has a comment or a question or an insight or anything they'd like to add, you can raise your hand in the room here or raise your hand on Zoom digitally or with your physical hand.
Coming from the
we'll find you.
meditation hall, we have a comment or a question to start. Thank you.
Adam. So my name is Russ, and Adam, I just want to acknowledge, honor, and thank you for the way in which you open yourself, the vulnerability that you exhibit, the intimacy that you share with us in your lived experience of the Dharma. Makes it very relatable and powerful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. One of my favorite Dharma quotes is Dogen, who is the founder of Soto Zen. He said, enlightenment is intimacy with all things. Intimacy with all things. I have a question. My question is, can anybody describe a time when the Dharma showed up in your life unexpectedly? When your practice showed up unexpectedly.
This is Carl. Carl,
Yeah.
and it's not.
Is it on?
I'm
Oh, it's on. It's on. It's just not super loud. It's good. Yeah, good.
okay. Okay. So I notice when I follow the political situation, um, although it seems much more extreme and fast happenings than it has before in my life, um, I'm not so upset somehow, and I'm surprised. It surprises me. Why am I not more angry? Or I am. I'm all those emotions, sadness and anger, but there's not as hard of an edge
Mm,
uh, to it. And it feels like that equanimity. Maybe after years of practice, that's all I can figure. I'm not taking any new medication and I'm not drinking so heavily, you know. So that's all I can account for it is breathing and things change. It's not an idea that I have or something I'm trying to not be so upset, but that just surprises me about the Dharma. I kind of look around and say, why am I not more upset? You know,
mm. And you're really involved too. Like you're out there doing things and involved
yes,
in demonstrations and groups and things like that. So you're really
yeah,
intimate. You're in it
yes,
too.
in it. And it somehow doesn't, it's not like a distance from the experience or feeling like well this has happened before and it's just the way things are and you have to accept something and that's a question or something I deal with. Accepting the way things are
Mm,
can feel like passivity.
mm,
Well, it's just the way things are. People hate and people jump other people and blah blah blah. And I feel engaged, like you say. It's not, it's hard to articulate what I'm,
yeah.
um, anyway.
No, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and that's something I didn't really get to talk about. But there's also this. I guess this gets more into the compassion part. There is, there is are clear boundaries. There is a no, especially if we take the ethic of non-harming very seriously, then we're here to protect others as well. And you see from the Buddha's life, the Buddha stepped in front of armies, protecting people. He stepped in to stop village disputes and disputes in the communities, and uh, even the word noble that he uses was controversial. I mean, it was related to the caste system, which he was trying to dismantle through his actions and through his teaching. So he wasn't a passive person. And I think, when I look at the Buddha's ethic, his main concern was uh, you know, creating the conditions for all beings to awaken, which comes with it justice for all beings. I mean, naturally, it's difficult if you're being oppressed by a tyrant to focus on your own well-being and to wake up. So I think justice and equality for all beings uh, requires from us to do something. So yeah, I don't see Buddhism as passive or pacifistic. So that's kind of a tangent, but um, yeah, I think there has to be a clear no, and when it comes to protecting.
just wanted to add to that. It's not being, yes, being angry, but not hating. It's not reacting to what's happening with the same energy that's coming at you. So that's the magic of being able to be present with what is and not feed the fire, but be able to be a calm presence to allow love to come through. Because that's the only thing in the end that's going to do it. So, yeah, so thank you for your question
Yeah,
and
thanks for that.
thank you for everybody who's out there working to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. And when you do notice that, why am I not getting so angry? It's worth seeing, like, oh, how much space and capacity do I now have to respond in a really wise way, rather than from this sort of being compelled by a reaction. So, all right, so it's 7:31. So
There's someone on Zoom.
oh, Betsy, go ahead, Betsy. You can unmute yourself. Uh-oh. Oh, maybe I can do it. Yeah, I can just ask her to unmute. That's all I can do. Uh, let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yay! Well, I had a Dharma experience just this afternoon. Um, I don't ever, I really am never on the phone in my car, and the bank called me, and I was looking for a parking space. And there was a man crossing the street wearing a baby with a dog. And apparently, I was so focused on the phone that my car was rolling. And he just screamed and cursed at me, like, really angry, like, are you going to run me over? And I wasn't really that close to him, but I was not paying attention. Anyway, I parked the car and I walked. I didn't park right near there. And I found him, or he found me. He just popped out of a store and he said, I was waiting for you. And it wasn't even on the same street. And then we had just this beautiful conversation about caring. It was, and he apologized, I apologized. And then we just talked about people taking care of each other.
Hmm.
It was quite beautiful.
Hmm.
Total change for, he realized that his tone was really cruel, and he waited to talk to me about it. And I was as well looking for him to apologize for being so distracted, but it turned into a really deep conversation.
Hmm. That's beautiful. And then it healed the rest of your day, because, you would have both probably maybe carried that around the rest of the day.
Well, it was just such a kind of a positive resolve to that situation of me not being focused and him just going right into real anger. So his conversation did really surprise me after he reacted that way. And it made me really happy.
Thank you
That's
so
the
much,
end.
Betsy, for sharing.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to close out now. Let's just pause here for a moment. Taking a breath or two. Just feeling the sense of joy of just being in Sangha and practicing the Dharma, listening, discussing the Dharma. There's nothing really like it, being in community. and being in community, there's many people in need or people who have been lost. And so we've created this prayer list. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but we decided that we wanted to just start reading out names of people in need, without being too specific, just the names. And then after I read out these names, there will be space for you to say names out loud on Zoom if you'd like to, or in the room. And so I'll just name these names to hold in our hearts. Richard Feldstein, Paul Godwin, Mira Godwin, Mary Ellen Fine, Undine and Elliot, Colleen Goodman, Freya and Marcia, Nancy, Alexandria, Brittany, Alexandria, Rami Fisher, Ross, Sia, Jack. Some open space here for anyone else. We hold these names and any names that were held silently in our hearts and community with metta. May all beings everywhere experience the perfect peace. May the goodness of our practice be shared with all who we come into contact with. May the Dharma spread in seen and unseen ways. May all beings everywhere, in all directions, without exception, be free from suffering and the conditions of suffering. Thank you for your practice. Sorry for going a little long. Uh, Thank you, Zoomers. If you'd like to unmute and say bye, you can do that. And just so you know, this we have a prayer list, metta list, remembrance list, whatever you want to call it, and it lives underneath the blue bulletin boards out in the lobby. And if Zoomers, you want to send any names in, I'm happy to add them to the list. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Have a good night.